but now we need to take further challenges on our head, and that's where the depositories were set up. But I think LC Gupta Committee was announced somewhere around 1996 November. So almost a year after, or 11 months after I wrote the first letter, SEBI was studying about it internally. They were also waiting for the Nick Leeson related issues to be a little sort of handled. Also the report of the SGX of what happened to come. And that's where the committee was set up in 1996 end. It was a 20-member committee, and I was the progenitor. I was the person demanding that instrument to be set up, and Dr. Gupta was the leader of the thinkers who had to ask us questions, also ask the questions to the rest of the country and also rest of the world. He was hugely fond. I very distinctly remember that he would want to go out and meet people, do the surveys. He was I think Mr. Chaurasia said about the surveying framework office, that he did not worry only about the theories, but he wanted to prove empirically. And that's why he would create questions or questionnaires. He would send it to literally 500,000 people across India and across the world and wait for their answers. I think there were 8 committee meetings, and they would last for days, and they would keep on asking me questions about, and the concept was that I had never traded. I was a banker. I had not even traded in stocks. I had invested in stocks, but I had lost a lot of money. And so that was my experience in terms of trading. But of course, I was running NSE's equities market, and so that portion was there. But I was not a trader, and nobody had traded derivatives. The American books, which were written on derivatives, were very, very tough. It was almost looked like you had to be a PhD in mathematics to be able to understand those books, and even mathematic PhDs were finding it difficult. And that is where basically some of the ideas which he could come out with, and it's written in his report, even after literally, I think its report was submitted in March 98, so it's almost 24 years. It still reads current. The beauty about the ideas is that even after 50 years, after 1,000 years, we may still refer to this LC Gupta Committee report. And that is what the power of the ideas are. In those days, there was actually a dissent by one Mr. M.G. Damani. If you read the report, BSE was basically into thinking that their framework of Badla was invented in India, and it is the most suitable for India, and India does not require anything other than Badla system, which was actually mixing up equities with the spot market with the futures market, and also some sort of a cause for frequent settlement issues. And so he wrote a very stinging dissent note. But if you read the dissent note, which I again recalled, and I yesterday night for preparing for this lecture, I was actually going through that, and I remembered all our discussion on television. Both me and Mr. Damani used to spar on television those days on Doordarshan and other things about, I used to say why derivatives are required, and he would say why India doesn't require derivatives. And so his dissent, if you go through, that was also visionary. But one statement he had written was that India trades 300 crore rupees a day. India used to trade 300 crore rupees a day in 1992 during the best of times. That was Harshad Mehta times. And now India is trading after the NSE's advent. India is already trading 4,500 to 5,000 crore rupees. And it is leading to tremendous amount of speculation. And derivatives may actually lead to even further speculation. But it was not so. It was nothing to do with derivatives that the volumes were increasing. It was more to do with automation. When you, I used to give this example during those days, that when washing machines came, people thought ladies will spend less time in washing clothes. But you know what happened? Ladies started washing more clothes. And that is what happened in stock markets, because it became so transparent, it became so fast, it became so low cost that the brokerages, which used to be 2.5% minimum, plus what we used to call GADA, which is if the broker bought for you at 100, by the time he told you that he got an execution done for you, he would say it at 105, and you had no way to figure out. And so you will get 105 plus 2.5% on that. And that used to be the cost of trading, and that's why there used to be less trading. When you now come back forward in 2022, today, the price of brokerage is close to zero. There is a brokerage which is called zero dha, right? It is the zero brokerage concept. And today, India trades from that 300 crore rupees a day in equities and derivatives put together, all notional value. India is trading close to 1 crore rupees a day. It is the change that has happened is unbelievable. And some of the ideas, some of the executions that happened due to the recommendations of that committee I will recall, I think some of it was recalled by Shri Amarjit Singh, but the contract size, what should be the contract size? It was a great debate. And Dr. Gupta was very clear that retail people should not be allowed to participate because it's a very sophisticated product. And we need to have 2 lakh rupees of minimum contract size. And 2 lakh rupees of 1995 or 96 used to be much larger than 2 lakh rupees of today in terms of the value that it used to generate. And so the contract size, he wanted to clearly keep it. And keeping with that idea, slowly SEBI kept on increasing the contract size, and today it is even much larger than 2 lakh rupees because of that idea of us that we need to keep the retail people away. That doesn't mean the retail people have been kept away, but effectively the contract size was something which was discussed and debated. Then the sequence of introducing contracts, he was very clear that he wanted to introduce a product which is not manipulable easily. He was very, very concerned about the stock market manipulation, which was rampant in those days. And that's why he said we need to have an instrument which is not easily manipulable. And that is why he was insistent on starting with index. He said the options are very difficult to understand, although they are good in concept for retail investors because they are like insurance. But futures is easy to understand, and we start with index futures. And that's how index planning, I mean, he was like very clear after 1.5 years of debate, discussions in his mind. And interesting thing about him was he would not allow any one of us to write even a chapter. He would write everything himself. The entire report was written by him personally. We actually, many of us who were youngsters would go and tell him that, sir, no, we will help you. He said, no, this is my job. You can give me feedback, but leave the report to me. Right? And so everything, it is the work ethic of those times of that person is what you remember very fondly, that today the reports are written not usually by the chairman. Sometimes they do, but usually they are not. But those days, those people were different, and that's why we revere them today also after 25, 30 years of what they did. The other thing he insisted, again, depositories were not set up by the time this committee was meeting, but he insisted that all the stocks in the index have to be in depository. So he was making a precondition that if you set up as NSE, since you are saying you want to go with derivatives, you first set up depository. That was his precondition. If you read, today depositories are set up and you think it was so easy to do. But for depositories, we had to worry about the Indian Benami Act. Depositories today hold shares on behalf of the investors. It is actually holding in Benami shares. There was a special act that had to be enacted. It is Indian Depositories Act, I think 1998, right? And that's how the depositories were set up, and it was a precondition that if you don't do it, don't even think about derivatives. But many people did not understand why he wrote that. And since he wrote it, it was also now, if NSE wanted to have derivatives, NSE had to work on depository, right? Setting up a depository, making it work. And it is there in recommendation. If you read carefully, it says that all the stocks in the index have to be in depositories. He also said that in Indian stock market, you become a broker not due to qualification. You become a broker due to your being born or being married into that family of broker. And so he wanted to professionalize Indian stock broking. And he said, if you have to be a broker in a derivatives market, you have to pass an exam. Nobody liked it. This was the most opposed item in this entire report. That how can you make us give exam at the age 55? You don't know anything about market. We trade every day. Who are you to tell us? And he insisted on that. On that basis, I set up an automated examination system called NSE Certification in Financial Markets, which is now being run by NISM, National Institute of Securities Markets. But again, professionalizing Indian stock market actually started happening under this report. Why I'm telling you this? Each of those decisions which he wrote about had several repercussions, which today when you look back and you read them carefully, you know why he did that. And that is why you call him visionary. You don't call him visionary